Psalm 71. Verse number 9 says, "Cast me not off in time of old age." Now, that may not mean much to most people in here, but there's an application. There are fears that associate with people who have age that others do not face. When you get age on you, then you get to the point where you feel like, well, when your strength begins to weaken, that you're not any use anymore. And when you are not useful, because people have a tendency that if you can't do anything for them, they don't have time for you. The same thing goes with people who are sick, that they get to a point where they don't feel like they're of any use. And so, and it is true, people will treat you this way. Turn with me to the book of 1 Samuel. And the greatest prayer warrior, I believe, I like him better than Moses. I'm not kicking on Moses or having any disrespect. I just like Samuel. But he is up there with Moses. He says in 1 Samuel chapter 8, "It came to pass when Samuel was old." Now, they never did this when he was young. They do it when he's old. Because, if you ever notice that people, when they attack somebody on a subway or on a city street, a lot of times it's an old person. And it kills me, though, sometimes when you see on the news, when they got these little stories that you might want to see, is where somebody attacked an old fella, but they didn't realize that he was a Golden Glove boxer or he was an ex-Marine or something, and just beat the stuffings out of him. I was watching one time where these kids were, they were some old men, and I say old, I mean they're probably pushing 80, on a golf course, and these kids are in the tree line with a remote control car. And so when the ball rolls up on close to the hole, I've never played golf in my life and don't plan on it, but anyway, they ran the car out there and moved the golf ball. Well, I know enough to know you're not supposed to do that. And these guys started cursing these young fellas, and they came out there and acted like they was going to do something, because they took their golf clubs and smashed the car. And then the guys came out of the woods and wanted to fight. I said, okay, we'll fight. So they took the golf clubs and they chased them back into the woods with their golf clubs. I like that. But so they want to get rid of Samuel because he's gotten old. And so they never would have done this 20 years prior to this. But now we have some aspect, because a man has gotten some age on him and he doesn't get around as well as he used to, then, he's not as important as he used to be. A lot of pastors get pushed out of their churches. I'm trying to set myself up because I'm turning 60 this year, and so I'm padding this thing so that you'll feel really guilty for trying to get rid of me when I turn 70. All right, but it happens, and he says here, the name of the firstborn. He said, when Samuel was old, he made his sons judges over Israel. And the name of the firstborn was Joel, and the name of the second was Abiah. They were judges in Beersheba, and his sons walked not in his ways. And then the elders in verse 4 said, he gathered themselves together and came unto Samuel and said, behold, thou art old, and thy sons walk not in thy ways, make us a king. So, and then of course the reality of it is that they rejected the Lord. They weren't necessarily rejecting Samuel, but they were rejecting the Lord that he should reign over them. But a lot of times what people will do is they'll take an older pastor and they'll attack him because of his age, but in reality they don't like what he's been preaching over the process of the last 30, 40 years. And so this is a good time to get rid of him, and let's get some new blood in here so we can go contemporary. That's exactly what they're doing here. So go back to our text in Psalm chapter 71. He's asking the Lord not to cast him off in his old age. You say, well, that's silly to even think that God would do that. Well, you turn 90 and see how you feel. David didn't live to be 90, he lived to be 70, but he's approaching it, and I'm assuming that his health is beginning to deteriorate. And so when your health begins to deteriorate, it does something to your mind, because you get to feeling like you're not any use to anybody anymore, because you can't do it like you. If you're bedfast, or if you're in a wheelchair or something along, you get to the point where you think, well, I'm no good, because we all want to be useful. Honestly, I don't see how anybody retires. If I get more than 2 days off, I go stir crazy. I can't stand it. And I drive my wife up a wall. I don't know how my daddy retired and seemed to enjoy it. If I retire, I'll probably commit suicide. And that's a joke, folks. I'm not serious about that. But although I might, I don't know. Anyway, he says here, cast me not off in time of old age, forsake me not when my strength faileth. Well, we do know this. Others may forsake you, but he will not. And let me say this. There are people who are going to stay with you regardless. But you might as well face this. When you get to be an old person, people will have a tendency to push you aside. They don't value your opinions. They don't. But you're not as youthful. You don't do as. And it is this. I wish I'd have taken advantage of talking to my grandparents more than I did. They had valuable information that I passed up, but because they were old, I didn't deem them as being, they couldn't really help me. They can't tell me a whole lot. You would do yourself a favor by, if your grandparents are still alive, sitting down and picking their brain, because they can tell you some things about life. Anyway, that's the message. We have a prayer meeting a week from last night, 12 o'clock. And we're going to meet in the fellowship hall, and I'll be announcing this again tomorrow. We won't go in the gymnasium this time. Gymnasium will be set up for Father's Day, but we'll meet in the fellowship hall. So I'll see you in the morning. God bless you.